Happy Monday. This is James Himm Mitchell, your intuitive guidance counselor, here with your week in tarot. And this week we're going to be using the Wizard's Tarot by Corrine Kenner and John J. Blumen. And as you know, I've taken the deck and I've separated it into three piles. The first pile here on the left is going to be our theme for the week, and it's going to be a major arcana card. The major arcana cards from tarot talk about the spiritual influences, the psychological factors, and what the overall lesson of the week will be. The middle pile will tell us what tarot is asking us to consider as an approach for the week, and that's going to consist of either a king, queen, knight, or page from the court cards. And then the final pile on the right is going to be a potential challenge that we may experience as we move through the week, and it's going to be a minor arcana card. So having said that, I'm going to take the first pile and I'm going to shuffle till I feel led to pull a card. Okay, so when they fall out like that, that's significant. I'm going to take the top one, put these aside. Okay, our theme for the week is the Empress card. So whenever the Empress card comes up, it asks us to find ways in which we can nurture and care for ourselves. Now, this is prominent for people who are mothers or mother-like figures to other people. And one of the things I tell them is that those types of people spend a great deal of time and energy caring for and nurturing other people at the expense of themselves. So when this card comes up, I always am mindful of asking people to consider, what ways do you care for yourself? What ways do you nurture yourself? And how can you do more of that if you're not doing it enough this week? Another thing about the Empress card is that she represents the aspect of creativity. And so when it shows up, it reminds us all we are all creative beings. So it doesn't mean that, creativity as in like being an artist or a writer or somebody who creates artistic work. Is just asking us to realize that we are all creative beings, and the life that we experience is something we have created to some extent. So if you're not enjoying your experience with life, ask yourself, how have I contributed to creating the life that I'm living, and how can I recreate it if I'm not enjoying the experience? But this card is asking us to be in touch with our creative power. Also too, if you are working on creating something, understand that the creative process takes time. The image on the card usually depicts a woman who's pregnant. So for me, it represents something that's in utero, something that's in its developmental stages, something that has not manifested yet, because the actual birthing process is the point of manifestation. So, just know that whatever you're creating, it's going to take time to develop into manifestation. So that's the Empress. So now our approach card for the week is going to be, I like this one. Our approach is the King of Pentacles. And so now the King of Pentacles usually represents the idea of mastery. Kings represent power, control, mastery. So him being a pentacle, he represents the idea of physical manifestation, going along with the Empress. So it's very funny. So the idea of what I said about the birthing process and the manifestation, he represents the end result, the manifestation. It's in physical form. He is known for having a great deal of wealth. He is known as the archetype of having the Midas touch, where everything he touches turns to gold. So going with that, understanding that everything that you create has had some form of value. And when you become more in touch with your power, going with the King, your power of creativity and manifestation, going with the Pentacles, you are being more in touch with being mindful of the value of your creations. So it's just being more in touch with the idea that you have the power of creativity and manifestation, and how can you place more value on the things you have manifested up to this point? Because if you don't value them, you're not going to value the next thing that comes. There's a spiritual principle when it comes to the idea of abundance, which again is the Empress, that if you're not the master of what you have created up into this point, you're not going to be getting more, because if you're not managing what it is that you currently have, why would the universe give you more? So the idea is like, how can you become a master of what you already have, which will then in turn help you become the master of more. So that's the King of Pentacles. Now our possible challenge for the week. Ooh. Did you see that? That card wants to come out. Is the Ten of Wands. Okay. So now when the Ten of Wands comes up, it represents a potential challenge of having too much going on. If you look at the picture, a man is walking and he has 10 wands and they're all on fire. They're all lit. And the fire here represents the idea of being passionate and having lots of inspiration and motivation. Okay? But the thing here is that he's struggling with all the wands that he's carrying. So it's asking us to consider, in what ways are we taking on too much? This card goes back to the Empress in a way where I said the idea of taking care of other people. Sometimes what we do is we take care of other people in the way that enables them not to take responsibility for their own lives. And so be mindful of the things that you're taking on. If you feel like you're doing too much, ask yourself, am I responsible for all these things that I have chosen to take on? And if not, how can you delegate? This card is asking us to practice the art of delegation, which is releasing things to other people who can either take on the responsibility or care for them in ways that you cannot because you have taken on too much. Now, when I said too about the Empress, about caring and nurturing for ourselves, the Ten of Wands says if you're not careful, that you could run the risk of overworking yourself, overburdening yourself, which could then in turn show up physically as fatigue, exhaustion, and burnout. So again, this card is asking us to, how can we practice the art of self-care? And sometimes in this particular instance, it's about the art of letting go of things that we think that they're our responsibility. Especially with the king here, you know, I said kings can represent power, control. They can sometimes represent authority figures as well as the Empress. So maybe we think because we're in a position of authority that we have to do everything, but that is not the truth. One of the things that I learned personally when I was a manager in my corporate working environment, that I was under the mistaken belief that I had to do everything myself. And, you know, I wound up burning out. So that's what I know about this card. I had to learn the art of letting go of control enough where I could give things to people and expect to have it done. And I didn't practice that. So I learned that the hard way. So, you know, I'm asking you to learn from my experience. And if you are taking on too much, ask yourself, what can I let go of? What can I release to other people who, you know, that may be their gift, that may be their expertise, that may be their specialty. And I'm denying them the opportunity to shine in a way that they'll be radiating their personal best. So, going with the summary, the Empress is asking us to care and nurture for ourselves this week. How can we practice the art of self-care? Also to be mindful of everything in your life has been something that you have contributed creating. So how can you best honor your creative process? And also to, if you are an actual creative person, understanding that all things are a process, that everything is, you know, it's a conception, it's about the development, and then it becomes about the birthing and the manifestation into the physical. So that's the Empress. King of Pentacles. How can we place value on what we have already created, so therefore we can create something of more value to us, something that's going to have a longer lasting value? And again, how can we be more in touch with our power of creativity and understanding that everything we create is good? There's a spiritual principle I come from a Christian background, that the saying goes is that God created everything and everything was good. So how can you see the good in everything that you have created? Because there's good in it. And then the Ten of Wands is asking us to be mindful in our art of self-care. How can we manage not taking on too much, not overworking ourselves, not overburdening ourselves? And if we have gotten to that point, how can we do a course correction so we don't burn ourselves out? Which means, what can we pass on to someone else and allow them to shine in a way that we may have been depriving them all this time? So these are your cards. This has been your Week in Tarot. I am James Himm Mitchell, your intuitive guidance counselor, and I look forward to sharing this space here again with you next week. And until then, have a tarot-tastic week and take care.